Hello families, hello my sweet littles. How are you today? I hope you're doing well. So far today, I've been on a walk in the morning. I took some photographs. I actually lost something and then I found it. Then I came home, ate breakfast, did some yoga, cleaned my space in my room, in my dining room, just a little bit. I still have a lot to do. I do. And then now I'm reading to you, and I hope that you're going to enjoy this book because guess what? One of our friends, Calliope, brought this and put it on my porch for us to read for story time. Thank you so much, Calliope, for sharing one of your lovely books with me and to the rest of your friends. I know that we are going to love this book. This is the first time I've seen this book, so we're going to get to enjoy it together. I have with me a little plant that I'd like to share with you. It's a new plant. It's brand new to me. Look at how cute this plant is. Someone I love gave this to me for Mother's Day. And aren't you just as excited as I am? Because look at how beautiful this little planty is. Oopsies. And the plant came with a little stand and oh, it almost fell. And I'm so excited to be able to share her with you. Her leaves are very delicate and shiny, and a little touch of pink underneath the leaves gives her a little bit of a glow, and I love her very, very much. It's a good thing. So thank you very much, Josh, for bringing me this beautiful gift. I truly, truly love it. I'm going to be very gentle now and put this over here, just like this. Okay, now let's put on some lavender and light our candle. Here's our lavender. And let's take a nice deep breath. Inhale, exhale. Inhale again. Exhale. Beautiful. And the candle, I forgot to get it. It's right over here, so excuse me. There we go. Here's our candle. Now let me light it for you. Now behind me, I don't know if you can see this. Let's see. You can't really, but there's an incense stick that I put up that I am burning. And I'll get it for you. And this one was given to me by Joshua's grandfather, who is from India. And he introduced me to incense a very long time ago. And this one happens to be from India. And it's beautiful. Look at the color on the exterior of it. It's filled with essential oils. And this one is the scent of rose. And so I have this burning as well to clear and clean the space. And I'll put this one back, I'll show you. Just right there. And then we'll get our candle going also. Now it's a little bit of a cooler day today, and the clouds are out, and it's sort of nice to always have a candle going on days like this, just to warm the space up. And I'm going to put it right here so you can see. This one is called The Country Bunny and the Little Gold Shoes. Oh, I cannot wait to read it. It's by Dubois Heyward, or Dubose Heyward. Teachers are practicing also. It's in a script, and it was a little challenging for me to read right now. So pictures by Marjorie Hack. Ooh, I've actually seen books illustrated by her before. Now, on the inside, there is an inscription that was written to Calliope from someone who loves her very much, and it says, "For Calliope, happy first birthday. Love, Aunt Anne and Uncle Ben?" I'm not sure. It looks Bernie? I'm not sure what it says. It's a little challenging. I'll have to ask Calliope who that is. And there are the little gold shoes. The country bunny and the little gold shoes. There's the country bunny. We hear of the Easter bunny who comes each Easter day before sunrise to bring eggs for boys and girls. So we think there is only one, but this is not so. There are really 5 Easter bunnies, and they must be the 5 kindest and swiftest and wisest bunnies in the whole wide world, because between sunset on Easter Eve and dawn on Easter morning, they do more work than most rabbits do in a whole year. And when one of the Easter bunnies grows old and can no longer run fast, the old, wise, and kind grandfather bunny who lives at the Palace of Easter Eggs calls the bunnies together from the whole world to select the very best one to take the place. Often a mother bunny says to her child, "Now, if you learn to be wise and kind and swift, someday you may grow up to be one of the Easter bunnies." And all of the babies try their very best so that they can grow up and go to work for the grandfather bunny in the Palace of Easter Eggs. One day, a little country girl bunny with a brown skin and a little cotton ball of a tail said, "Someday I shall grow up to be an Easter bunny. You wait and see." Then all of the big white bunnies who lived in fine houses, and the jackrabbits with long legs who can run so fast, laughed at the little cottontail and told her to go back to the country and eat a carrot. But she said, "Wait and see." The little girl Cottontail grew up to be a young lady Cottontail, and by she had a husband. And then one day, much to her surprise, there were 21 Cottontail babies to take care of. Then the big white rabbits and the jacks with long legs laughed and laughed, and they said, "What did we tell you? Only a country rabbit would go and have all those babies. Now take care of them and leave Easter eggs to great big men bunnies like us." And they went away liking themselves very much. Cottontail stopped thinking about hopping over the world and lovely eggs for little boys and girls, and she took care of her babies. And one day, when her children stopped being babies and were little girl and boy bunnies, she called them to her and said, "Now, are we going to have some fun?" Look at all those babies. Then 2 of them she gave little brooms and showed them how to sweep the cottage. And 2 she taught how to make beds. 2 more went with her to the kitchen and in no time at all had found out how to cook a good dinner. And with these went the 2 little dishwashers, and they made the glasses shine like crystal. 2 had little wash tubs full of soap suds, and they washed all the linen. 2 did the sewing and the mending. You have learned how to do sweeping at school, and we've done some prepping of food and washing of dishes. And look at their cleaning. So many things. 2 had sweet voices, were taught to sing, and 2 more to dance, and these amused all the others while they worked so that they were happy and gay. 2 others were soon digging in the garden, and 2 she gave paints and crayons so that they could make pretty pictures for the walls. And when Mother Cottontail had given out all of the tasks that she could look around, she looked around and there was only one little boy bunny left, and he was sad and lonely. Then Mother Cottontail said to him, "You are the most polite of all my children, so I shall make you keeper of my chair, and whenever I come to dinner, you shall seat me politely at table." Then one day, when the little rabbits were half grown up, she had heard a great talk among the woods rabbits, and when she asked what it was about, they said, "Haven't you heard? One of the 5 Easter bunnies has grown too slow, and we are all going to the Palace of Easter Eggs to see the old grandfather pick up a new one to take his place." Here's the singing and dancing bunnies, the gardening bunnies and the painting bunnies, and the sweetest one to take her chair. So she called her little cottontails, and they all set off to the palace to see the fun. But their mother was sad because she thought that now she was nothing but an old mother bunny and could only look on, and that a big handsome white rabbit or a long-legged jack would be chosen. When they came to the Palace of Easter Eggs, there were bunnies everywhere on the great lawn, and the ones that hoped to be the Easter bunny stood together, and all the others looked at them and clapped their paws. Then the big front door opened, and the old, wise, and kind grandfather came hopping slowly out. And he told the biggest and those with the longest legs to show what they could do. They jumped and ran and showed him their pretty white fur, and they were all very fast and very clever. So here they are. There's the old bunny, and there's the bunnies who are wanting to show what they could do. But still he did not pick one, and he said to them, "You are pretty and you are fast, but you have not shown me that you are either kind or wise." Then his kind old eyes looked everywhere, and at last they rested on little Cottontail Mother, where she stood with her children around her, and he called her to come right up to the palace steps. So she took her 21 children and went up and stood before him. And when he spoke, his voice was so kind that she was not frightened at all. And he said, "What a large family you have, my dear. I suppose they take all of your time." But she said, "When they were babies, that was so. But now they are so well trained, and they do most of the work for me." "Ah," he said, smiling, "you must be very wise to train so many children so well. But tell me, do they always look so happy, and do they always hold their ears up so prettily?" "Indeed they do," she answered. "We never have a tear or a cross word in our little country cottage. And if I do say so myself, they do carry their ears better than most bunnies." "Then," he said, patting the nearest bunny on the head, "you must be very kind indeed to have such a happy home. It is too bad that you have no time to run and grow as swift as I might then have made you my 5th. At that, Mother Cottontail started to laugh, and then she whispered to the little bunnies, and every rabbit on the lawn looked to see what would happen if the old grandfather leaned forward to watch. Suddenly, all of her 21 children raced away, and Cottontail dashed after them. And so here are the little bunnies that are trying to run, and here is Mother Cottontail, and she is starting to run as well. In no time at all, she had them all back again in front of the palace. Then the old, kind, wise grandfather bunny said, "I see that you are swift also. It is too bad that you cannot go to carry my eggs, because you will have to stay at home to take care of your children." Mother Cottontail nodded her head to the little ones, and they all formed a line and bowed low to the grandfather. Then she stepped in front of them, and she said, "They will take better care of the house than I. Then she called them up 2 by 2. As she put her hands on the heads of each pair, she said, "These are my sweepers. They keep the cottages clean as your hand. These make the beds without a wrinkle. These cook my dinner. These wash my dishes. These tend the garden. These wash the dry the clothes, and these do all the mending. These sing, and these dance to keep us merry while we work. These are learning to paint pretty pictures for our walls, and this littlest one of all always pulls my chair out for me when I sit to table." So you can see I can leave them to take care, and there's all her children lined up all nicely to take care of the house until I come home. Then the old, kind, wise grandfather said, "You have proved yourself to be not only wise and kind and swift, but also very clever. Come to the palace tomorrow afternoon, for that is Easter Eve, and you shall be my 5th Easter bunny." The next evening, Cottontail knocked on the big front door and was admitted to the palace. There she stood in her funny country clothes, but none of the other 4 Easter bunnies laughed, for they were wise and kind, and they knew better. So there she is going to the castle. They showed her all over the palace, from room to room, all piled high with eggs of gold and silver, and eggs that glittered like snow. Chocolate eggs, marshmallow eggs, eggs for rich children and eggs for poor children, for children who were sick and children who were well, all over the world. Then, as soon as it was dark enough for the children to be asleep all over the world, the old, wise, kind grandfather gave word that the 5 bunnies set to work as fast as they could. First one, then another, would take up a large egg or a pretty little basket, and in a single hop would be out of the palace and away out of sight. Then, in a moment, he would be back again, and before you could say Jack Robinson, he would have whisked away again. Slowly, the night wore away, and the bunnies began to look tired as they kept returning for more and more eggs. And in the palace, the glittering piles grew smaller and smaller. Poor little Cottontail was very tired, for this was the first time she had ever gone so far or so fast in her life. And as she was beginning to hope that she could soon take the little basket that was set aside for her own children and go hopping home, when old, wise, kind grandfather called her to him. When she went close, she saw that he was holding in his hand the loveliest egg she had ever seen. It had glittered like a diamond. "Peek through and see what you shall see," he said. So she peeked. Through the little hole in one end, she saw a beautiful scene with a sleigh and a lake with people skating on the ice. And he said, "Because you have such a loving heart for children, I'm going to give you the best, but the hardest trip of all. Far off over 2 rivers and 3 mountains, there is Great Mountain Peak, and in a little cottage on that peak is a little boy who has been ill for a whole year, and who has been so brave that never once has cried or complained. The mountain is so high that there is ice on the top, and it will be hard to climb, but if you get there, you will give more happiness than any other Easter bunny." Cottontail picked up the egg very gently and went hopping away on her journey. She crossed the first river and then the second. She went over the first mountain and then another mountain and yet another, until at last she reached the highest mountain of all. She was very tired, and when at last she got to the bottom of the great peak, and her heart failed her when she saw how high it was and how slippery with ice and snow on top, but holding the egg very carefully, she started hopping up. At last she reached the ice and snow, and now she was almost to the top, and she could see the little cottage all covered with snow, where a little boy was sleeping. Then a terrible thing happened. Her foot slipped, and down she came. Downward she flew into snowdrifts, and then she left the ice and snow, and rolling and bouncing against the stones, she felt the air getting warmer. Down, down she went. She crashed through the thickest of budding laurel, rolled across the pasture, and finally struck against the trunk of a great apple tree that was just getting ready to bloom for Easter. And there she lay with the egg still safely clutched in her paw, but with great pain in her leg. She tried to rise again because she saw a lovely pink light in the sky, and she knew that in a few minutes more it would be the day, and the little boy would be sad if she did not get his egg to him. But the pain was so bad she fell down. Then she felt something touch her shoulder, and as she looked up, and there, right before her, way off, there's a picture of her holding the egg. Way off, there in that distant land was an old, wise, kind grandfather bunny, and he smiled at her and he said, "You are not only wise and kind and swift, but you are also the bravest of all the bunnies, and I shall make you my very own gold shoe Easter bunny." And he reached over, and she saw for the first time that he was holding a tiny pair of gold shoes in his hand, and he bent down and put them on her feet. Suddenly all the pain left her leg, and she stood up and picked up the precious egg. Then, before she knew what was happening, she felt a sudden motion and found herself flying high in the air over the pasture. She flew. Here's the picture of the bunny. And here she is flying over the laurel, over the stones, until at last, when she landed, she looked back and she saw that one single jump had carried her halfway up the mountain. Then she jumped once again, and there she was at the cottage door. Quickly, she squeezed through the tiny crack that had been left open just in case the bunny did come all that way. And there she is flying to the cottage. In the hand of the beautiful sleeping boy, she placed the egg. Then, just as the Easter morning sun rose over the edge of the world, she jumped quickly back to the palace, where she found her little basket. For her own little bunnies, she went hopping back home to give them a happy Easter. Mother Cottontail found that the garden had already been tended. There she is hopping back to her babies. And sure enough, just as she had said, everything was in order. The floors were swept, and there were 2 lovely new pictures painted and hanging on the wall. The dishes were washed and shown in the cupboard. The clothes were washed and mended and nicely hung away. And her 21 children were all sound asleep in their little beds. And the little house of Mother Cottontail can always be told now from the homes of all other bunnies, because in a special place on the wall, on a very special hook, hangs a pair of very tiny little gold shoes. Bum, bum. I loved this story, Calliope. What a beautiful book. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. I hope that one day you'll be able to do something wise and kind and swift and clever, and that someone will recognize that you are a brave little child or bunny or person. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I love you. Mwah.